All right. Again, James McBride, glad you're here. We are now going to take a look at, okay, how do we really protect ourselves from malware? Understanding malware and protection from malware is two very separate things. So we're going to look at some generalities and then again, watch the video where I actually run through it. So malware protection, how does it work? How does this actually know what's going on? Boy, I wish this is where AI understood things better, but it just doesn't really understand it too well. Okay, so this is our focus, malware detection techniques, preventative controls, recovery strategies, and again, reinforcing those safe user practices that we have started our discussion on. Here's our learning objectives. If you would like to pause it on that, that's the stuff that we're going to be going through. And now let's dig in. Windows comes with malware protection out of the box. Mac does too, but it's much more limited. So let's talk about the difference between these two. Microsoft has a much larger attack surface because its install base is so much higher. That means if I am somebody that really wants to damage as much systems as possible or steal as much money as possible, I'm going to create that virus for Microsoft. That's the attack surface. They are on the PC world, 80% of that world. So if I am somebody who makes viruses for malicious intent or Trojans, whatever, I'm going to do it on Windows. Now, that doesn't mean that there aren't viruses on Mac or Linux. Linux is a much, much smaller portion, especially in the US. And so for me, I'm running a Mac here and I use Sophos. It allows me to put this virus malware protection on 5 machines that are Macs, and I use it. And it has saved us at least 10 times, at least 10 times. Now, yeah, that's a lot lower. If you're on Windows, I would, in my virus protection over there, has probably saved me about 100 times. There's more viruses, there's more worms, there's more Trojans, there's more malicious attacks. So you have to understand that, and that's why Apple is like, well, we got this malware protection that's built into here, but it's not as advanced as what I'm using. And so what I'm saying is, if you're on Mac, watch my video on, some virus protection for Mac, but I would get it. I would get virus protection for your Mac computer and have it running and pay for that yearly. I think I pay like $60 a year. And that's because I get to run it across multiple Macs. So it's cheaper than that if you want to do that. Same for Windows. Windows, though, it has real virus protection built in the form of Windows Defender, which is what my videos for that look like. This is Windows Defender. Microsoft, they just got fed up with the fact that people call them up and go, my computer and Windows is terrible, and you guys are just awful, and it doesn't work. And it's like, you have a virus. It's like, we didn't write the virus. That's on you for getting the virus. And of course, people don't like that. And so finally, they're just like, okay, we have malware protection. Day zero, you have it. And one of my videos, and honestly, you need to watch that one on Windows. If you got Windows, you need to watch that video. Talks about removing pre-installed virus scanners because of the problems they may cause. But let's dig in. How does malware detection actually work? Well, the first one is known as signature-based or signatures. That's known as the pattern. So what they do is they know what the code looks like. That virus is written this way. And basically they take a snapshot of those the different code that's in it. And if they see that code coming into your system, so the virus scanning software watches that and it sees it coming into the system, it goes, oh, that's a virus. Based on the signature that I have over here, that meets that signature. It's sort of like saying a mugshot. As a matter of fact, it'd probably be nicer if it said mugshot based, because that's what we do. Here's the FBI's most wanted. This person has done something bad. Here it is on the evening news. That's basically what it's doing. It's doing that with the code, and it's very fast. So traditionally, this is the method, and you will have your virus scanning software will be updated daily, sometimes within every hour or minutes, because if they've got these big threats coming in and they've been notified, there's a whole community out there Microsoft has their own, McAfee has their own, Norton's has their own. They all have their own. And then there's open source stuff. And all that's being fed into basically what you call central database. And then they're knowing about it. So they're sharing this information to protect everyone. And so they can get something early in the morning and be like, oh, we need to push that to our users. And they push this new signature. Be aware of this one. Be aware of this one. It's fast, accurate, very good, but weak versus new modified malware. What does that mean? Well, I mentioned this before, but yeah, I want to go ahead and use this really cool virus that somebody made. I don't know who, like Captain Unicorn or whatever his hacker name is. And so I'm going to take that code, and in order to get around the virus signature software, I'll modify it a little. And that's what they're talking about. That if it's been modified too much, then the signature-based detection doesn't work. Now, heuristic means that it tries to look at the behavior, and I've never seen that work very well. What it basically does is it monitors your actions and behavior. So you're using your computer for months at a time and you don't have any viruses and you just keep using it. And it monitors that behavior and how you're doing things. Then all of a sudden, there's something jumping around, basically a program jumping around within these different directories. So it's like it's searching for your data, right? It's jumping around, jumping around, jumping around. It's like, hey, that's a virus or a Trojan or basically malware. I should just say malware. Because it's like this doesn't match your pattern of doing things. This is malware, and it'll pop up and say this program is doing stuff, and I have quarantined it. When it quarantines something, it means it stuck it in a box and it can't get out. Lots of people will freak out because sometimes their malware hasn't been updated yet to remove that malware. Sometimes their virus scanning software or their malware protection has not been updated to get rid of that particular worm or whatever, and it will quarantine it. Quarantining is okay. Eventually, that software will be updated and know how to delete that program, but it can be really pesky to be able to delete those. And so it'll come up and say, I've quarantined this. It means that basically put it in jail and it can't do anything. It has to sit there by itself. It flags suspicious activity, rapid file encryption. So that's one of the bad things they do. Oh, we're going to encrypt all of your pictures. Then we'll throw up a thing that says pay us. Otherwise, you can't have these pictures back. They're all encrypted. Oh, that's bad. So boom, it's running through and just encrypting a bunch of files. Well, that's not normal. So it says, oh, I'm going to stop this from happening. And it helps detect unknown zero-day threats through these methods. So zero-day threats mean there is no signature for it. It just came out today and it hit your system, unfortunately, on day zero. And your system has no way of knowing it's a virus. So it uses these methods to say, okay, I'm seeing some bad stuff here. I think this is a 0 day. I will tell you flat honestly, I have not seen that work very well. I haven't. And that's why I said in the beginning, AI really needs to be applied to this better. Um, I mean, it needs to just kind of record what your basic activity is all along and then realize, hey, this is a new program that's in the system. I've never seen this before. And now it's doing all this stuff. I think that's a virus. Because how would that work? Well, I install Word, I install Excel, I install Opera web browser, I install these different things. There should be a record that I installed that as part of this Trojan malware protection. So you can see that I installed it. When that program runs, you can look back and go, well, they installed it back here. So that's good. Then all of a sudden, this program pops up that I didn't install or just got installed as it installed through me without me knowing. And now it's running and doing all this stuff. Hey, did you want this? This is going through encrypting a bunch of folders or looking at a bunch of data in folders that I would expect them to try to steal data from. There's so much that can be done here. And it seems like they're 10 years behind, honestly. All right, malware is software created by an attacker to damage the systems, steal data, monitor user activity, take control of computers without the user's knowledge or permission. We did not have this in the other more simpler type of term of malware. This is true. Can take control of computers, take control of your camera, and so on. And we already talked about this is the specific type of malware, virus, worms, Trojans. But there's also ransomware that I have discussed. Encrypt all your pictures, throw up a screen that says you need to pay us. Spyware, just sitting there watching everything that you're doing, gathering information that's very common. And then, of course, adware that just pops up ads. And you're like, wow, when does this start? What did I install? And all these ads keep popping up. All right, so when you do a scan on your system, so you have Windows, great. You have Windows Defender. You can tell it right now to do a scan. Now that's known as an on-demand scan, manual or scheduled. And it does this deep scan, and it needs to happen at least once. Most people will set this up to run Arrow like once a quarter. Now, why they only do it once a quarter is it's intense and it does go through everything. And you also are doing a real-time protection and it's monitoring continuously. So that's why they don't do this one as often because this is running all the time. It's real time. It's sitting there watching everything all the time. It should get it if something happens. Even if you downloaded a virus and it didn't get it, right? It's like didn't see that as a virus. When it runs and starts doing weird things, then it grabs it and says, "Oops, that's bad." That's real-time protection. That provides immediate protection. On-demand scanning is, again, you tell it, do this every night, do this every week, do this every month, do this a quarter, that kind of thing. That's scheduled. Or you just click it and tell it to go. And you can do that right now. You can go to Windows Defender and you can say scan. Just like I can come up here to Sophos and I can open this up and do a scan right now. And it'll just start checking it right then. So on-demand scanning complements real-time protection, but it doesn't replace it. Unless you're scanning every half day at least, then it doesn't replace real-time protection. So I'm going to mention this because leads to another video that you can watch. I mentioned that what about these scanners that come pre-installed? Windows has Windows Defender. It's built in. You're ready to go. But HP, Lenovo, I don't care who it is. Asus tends to be one that's not this way, but definitely on the low-end machines. Part of how they get that price so down on those low-end machines is that they rent out your desktop. So they pre-install a bunch of games, they pre-install a bunch of different stuff. Those people pay them to put that on the desktop. It's what we call bloatware. So HP notoriously does this, Dell does this, all the major ones, Acer does this, and you'll have all this stuff pre-installed. Well, you'll notice if you've ever used any of those products, they'll usually have Norton's or McAfee installed. And Norton's and McAfee will come up and tell you how great they are and that you have 6 months free if it was really a great deal and you'd have a year free. But usually it's like 3 months or 6 months. And then what people do is that Norton and McAfee, right down on Windows, down near the clock, has that little icon and it tells you it's working. And every single time it starts, it's telling you, you need to buy this, you need to buy this. Nobody ever reads it. They click it away. They don't pay any attention to it. And then eventually they start getting pop-ups that say, I'm no longer working, I'm no longer working, I'm no longer working. But nobody notices that. They just think it's the same pop-up that they always get. They look down near the clock and they go, well, you're still running. Yeah, it's still running. However, remember that virus signature thing? Those aren't updating anymore. There's no updates to your mugshots. So if you spent the last 6 months being out of date, then you are protected from any viruses, Trojans, malware that were 6 months old. Anything from that 6 months forward, which is hundreds of thousands of things, you are not protected against. That's not good. So the video that I produce, that I have on this, I should say, basically gets into, okay, what do you need to do in that circumstance? How do you get rid of something that's installed there? And I go through that. So take the time to go through that. If that's you, if you've got McAfee you're not paying for, or Norton's you're not paying for, or any others, Trend Micro, I don't care, whoever it is, and you're not paying for it, that means you're exposed because these scans complement real-time protection, and you don't have real-time protection. That is gone. And that's a bad thing. That really is a bad thing. So watch that video if you're interested in that. Or if you know enough about what's going on your system, go in and uninstall McAfee and Norton's, and Windows Defender will just kick on. All right, but you, we love to use our computers and our phones for whatever the crap we want, and it's great. It's very freeing. However, that is usually the problem. I like to tell my majors and my students, computers just work. Did you know that? They just work. I can set up a computer and never do an update on it, and it just sit there and work. I can have a computer sit there and do an update on every single update, and it'll just work. The problems that we start to have are when users use the computer. Well, that's what they're there for. So obviously we want to use it. But what happens then? What am I really saying? Well, lots of people do not follow safe software practices. They just download whatever they want to download. I heard about this thing, let me download it. And it's not safe. It's bad, actually. So you need to go to trusted sources. Apple started the whole deal with app stores. That was not even a thing, and they started doing it on their phones. And there was a reason why. They already knew there was a problem on PCs and Macs with people going and downloading software from unsafe sites. So they go and say, I need a PDF reader. And if you type that in now, PDF reader, you're going to get a billion hits on what you could use on your machine. And the people would just go through and download stuff. And then they'd end up with Trojans. And so they said, let's not duplicate that. Let's make sure that we're reviewing stuff that goes into this app store. And they use a mechanical way of doing that, an automated way, and they also use people. And that is what all of the app stores have been moving to. So the Google App Store is closing down because they have so many Trojans and so many viruses on it. People are getting sick of it. They'd rather have their device work and get rid of all that junk that shouldn't be in the store. So what I'm saying is there is an app store. There's an app store for Mac OS that I'm running right here. There's an app store for iOS. There's an app store for Android. There's an app store for Microsoft. Go there first. Go there first and see if you can get what you need. If you can't, make sure that you are going to the correct site. Otherwise, you could get it from an unsafe source. There are plenty of devious people out there that are paying to be up in the search. That's a proven fact. Doesn't matter what search you're using. Google will put in there whoever paid. And now you've got PDF reader, malicious PDF reader. And you're not even getting, Adobe's PDF reader. You're not even getting an official PDF reader from somebody who would like you to pay them. Right? So unsafe sources. And then, of course, this is a big one, cracked or pirated software. This also stands for videos and music as well. These are an increased risk. If you're going out and getting free stuff, you need to know that you may be downloading some software that's been cracked, and that software, which is totally legitimate, is now acting like a Trojan on your system because they cracked it open and make it do stuff that you don't want them to do. And that happens a lot in games. Free stuff, there's usually a price to pay. So you really, really have to know what you're doing. And I don't have in here music and video, but it should be. If you're downloading free music and free videos from some places out there on the internet, those can be cracked or have malware in them already. And that's an increased risk. And if you don't have good malware protection, you will get compromised. Now, let's talk about something that people don't want to do, that people never do, but they really need to do. In some ways, our phones have made things so much better because when you get an iPhone, then they really try to push you to get an iCloud account. They really are like, just create an Apple account, will you? Just create one. Why? Because then you can track your phone, we can back things up, we can synchronize data across systems. And no, it's not just Apple. Google doesn't even allow you to get into a device without having a Google account. So they're much more restrictive than actually Apple is. And so you go through on a Google device and set it up. It's like, what's your freaking Gmail? When that happens, then the online backups start and they happen, which is fantastic. Now, on a Windows machine, it does have backup. And now, if you've got a brand new Windows 11 computer, it'll say you really need to tie this to a Microsoft account. And people hate that. And yeah, there's some, we get into privacy later. There are some problems with that. There definitely is. But the advantage is if you create that Microsoft account, that they give you like a free Office 365, which is all online, you get a certain amount of space to back up that system. And that system then becomes backed up to the cloud. That's where things have gotten better. Because of mobile and how that's working, it's kind of fed back into the PCs systems. But I have a video for Windows and for Mac that shows you this is how you set up a local backup. Because I'm telling you, most of us have a ton of photos. We have a ton of movies. We have a ton of entertainment things, and it's not going to fit on the cloud. And I don't want to pay Microsoft, Apple, or anybody a ton of money so I can store that. So instead, you can back up locally. So that's what we're talking about here is that what happens if something really bad happens? Well, if you have a backup, then you can actually get away from having to pay ransomware. You went through and oops, I downloaded that Trojan and it went through and encrypted all my pictures. And now I get a pop-up saying, hey, if you want your pictures back, uh, as soon as I see that, I'm going to get that sucker cleaned off. And then I'm just going to get all my pictures back because they're right here on this hard drive that I have. That's not a problem. Backups protect against ransomware, accidental deletion, hardware failures, and device loss. You need to have a backup. And I will let you know that on Apple, I know this is true. I don't know if you can do it on Android, but on Apple, if you put iTunes on your computer, you can plug in your phone and it'll ask you, do you want to back up this phone right here to this computer? And you can just back up the whole thing to that computer. And then once that's set up, it'll actually do it over the wireless. So you don't actually have to back it up to the cloud. A lot of people will complain about that, right? Apple is notoriously bad at, oh, you want some storage? That'll cost you 40 bucks, right? They request a lot of money for their services. And so they're like, I don't want my pictures backed up to the cloud because I don't have that kind of space. You can actually plug in your iPhone with iTunes on your computer, and then it'll say, do you want to back this up? You can back it up here. Once that's set up, it backs up wirelessly as you come in. If that computer's on and your phone is on, it'll back it up. It's fantastic. I should make a video for that. I haven't done that. So you need to think of security in a layer. Defense in depth is what they call this. You have to realize there's no single tool that's going to stop everything from happening to you. You have to have multiple layers. So you have to have virus protection, and you have to have updates, and you have to do backups. And we haven't talked about the least privilege yet, but that means setting up a user account that's not an admin on your computer. But yeah, you have to have all that stuff, and you have to be aware of what can happen. That's defense in depth. That's basically saying, I have an antivirus, I do my updates, and I have a backup. Those are the three most important ones. So I'm pretty well protected or secured because I have to have antivirus to protect me this way, updates that protect me this way, and backups that enable me to recover. Those updates are very, very important. As I said way back in the beginning, those updates are normally happening because there's been a hack, there's been something that they've seen that's wrong, and they need to plug it. So there may never actually be a virus program that exploits that, but there may be a way to get in from the outside. And so you got to keep your updates going. Ah, yes, our principle of least privilege. I need to make a video for this. I don't have one. Hopefully, by the time that you get into this unit, there will be one. But one of the bad things is when you get a brand new Windows machine, we're going to use them. Mac does the same thing. They're no different. Um, you set up a first account. They're like, who are you? What's your name? And you go through this process of setting up this user. That user is an admin. So they're an administrator on the computer in both situations. So if you click on something online and it brings a virus in, a Trojan in, whatever, a worm in, and your virus scanning software doesn't catch it, that malware is now running as an administrator on your computer. It has full control over whatever it needs to do, basically. Principle of least privilege means that in your situation, you would say, okay, well, I just set up this computer, great. Now I'm going to go create my user account and I'm going to not make it an admin. And what that does, especially on Windows, is if you're an admin in Windows, it often will just install things with a click. So what happens is you double click something and you're going to install this program. Normally there's these setup screens that help you out, but it doesn't have to do that. You double click it. Once you did that, it installed and it now is running whatever it was that you did. On Apple, it doesn't do that. Even if you're logged in as an administrator, every time you want to install something, every time something tries to install, it comes up and says, what's the password? So even though you're an admin on the system, on a Mac, it's going to force you to put in that password, and then it'll go ahead and do it. And that's time for you to think and go, wait, I didn't install anything. This is just popping up. Why is this happening to me? I didn't do this. Cancel. On a Windows machine, it doesn't do that. I'm an admin. Boom. I know that I'm trying to get into your system, so I'm not going to give you any screens that ask for your approval. Bam, it's running on the system. So on both systems, I always set up my account just as a user. And then when I have to install something, yes, it says, you're not an admin. So put in the admin ID and the admin password, which I know because I set up the computer. It is an extra step when we talk about convenience versus security. It's an extra step, but it also protects me from, oops, I just got malware and I didn't even have a chance to stop it from happening. That's what principle of least privilege does for you. So I'll make those videos and take the opportunity to watch whichever one you need to for your operating system. And we'll dig in a little further on how the operating systems deal with that. User awareness is what you're doing right now, but follow these rules. Follow these rules. We'll hit these again because they're really, really important. We already covered this for what happens with bad software or cracked software or pirated software. And then here's the key takeaways. Combined detection, signature, heuristic, that's done by default. So you don't have to set that as long as you've got virus scanning. You will need to set up on demand. So real-time scanning is going to be working. Then you need to figure out, okay, I'm going to do these deep scans. I'm going to set it to do that starting at 8 p.m. on, and then however often you think you should do it. Use trusted software sources, use the Microsoft Store, use the app stores, use Android Play and everything they have. Even Samsung, right, has their own stuff. Use that prior to just going out on the internet and trying to find it. Otherwise, you may end up with something that you don't want. Make sure you set up your backups. I encourage you to watch the little video about setting up backups on Windows and Mac so that you can recover things in case anything happens. And part of that is ransomware. Part of that is. And then, if you will, do the least privilege, especially in Windows. So again, on Mac, you're a little more protected because of how it's interacting. Uh, with Windows, set up a user account and run under that. Another thing I haven't mentioned with that is if you've got family members, set them up under their own account and definitely limit their access. So if you got kids, don't make them an admin, make them a user so that they can't just install whatever they want. And if that's a real problem because they're constantly trying to install things, I hate to say it, but you better get another computer. Let them screw up the computer they're going to use. They might learn something on how to fix it, but don't let them do it on your computer. Uh, yeah, I hate to say it. People are like, oh, I can't afford that. Well, then you will end up with Trojans and viruses because most teenagers, most kids are going to go out and get cracked things, put it on there, and you'll have malware within a couple of weeks. Like, why is my computer slow? So you set them up as a user, there's a lot less chance that's going to happen, but they're going to ask you all the time, "Oh, I want to install this. I want to install this. I want to install this." So that becomes a problem. Anyway, thanks for watching. This one went a little long, but it is a big, big, big thing. And thanks. Thanks for being a part of the class, and I hope this is helping.